Good morning, everyone. It is with great pleasure that we begin the third and last day of the International Seminar on Restorative Justice and Persons with Disability. Welcome. My name is João Salmi. I am a man with brown skin, 51 years old. I use gray glasses. I'm using a suit, a tie. But back behind me, we have a flag of the state of Sao Paulo. I am a professor in the criminal justice department at Governor State University in the Chicago metropolitan area. And I helped to organize this event. At first, I'd like to inform that we have translation throughout the entire event. You can go to the globe symbol and you can pick your language on the lower right on the globe symbol.
Para a plateia, as perguntas poderão
For the audience, it's important that you know that the questions, you can do it on the Q&A button. You can ask questions on the Q&A button. That's on the lower bar of the screen. This event is being carried out by the AJUFI, the Association of Federal Judges of Brazil, by Gallaudet University, Governor State University, Howard Zer Institute, and the Instituto João Clemente, IJC. We will begin the opening speeches of our day today in the following order. First, we have here the Dean of Governor State University, President Dr. Cheryl Green. We also have with us the Counselor of the National Justice Council of Brazil, Luis Fernando Tomás. And so I'd like to begin these two great leaders, not only in the area of social justice and in restorative justice. People who have been dedicating themselves and really adding a lot to the restorative justice movement, both nationally and internationally throughout our American continent. And now I'd like to introduce President Dr. Cheryl Green. Dr. Cheryl Green brings more than me.
Governor State University, and as the leader of the Jaguar family. Go Jaguar! A passionate educator and administrator, Dr. Green believes fiercely in the power of education to change lives. Throughout her career, she has pioneered the innovation of academic enrichment opportunities and student success initiatives that promote increased retention and graduation rates for first generation and non-traditional college students. Most recently, Dr. Green served as Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh, as Interim Chancellor for the University of Wisconsin, Whitewater, and as an Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs at Tennessee State University. In addition, Dr. Green served at Chicago State University in a variety of administrative and academic roles, including Director, Chair of the Counseling Department, Dean of First-Year Students, Acting Associate Director of Career Placement, and as a tenured Associate Professor of Counseling. Dr. Green also served as the Grievance Officer for the University Professional of Illinois, UPI Local 4,100 for 7 universities. Dr. Green's community service work includes serving on numerous advisory committee boards and boards of directors. Recently, she's been active on the Howard Hughes Medical Institute STEM Grant Advisory Board of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the Manchester University Board of Trustees, the Will County Center for Economic Board of Directors, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning Regional Economic Workforce Task Force, the Association of Governing Board Council of Presidents, and the Equity Group, Working Group for Black Student Success in Illinois' higher education. Clearly, Dr. Green is dedicated to making a difference in our communities. Dr. Green has a PhD and a master's degree in counseling psychology from Southern Illinois University. She obtained her bachelor's degree in psychology from Manchester College, now Manchester University in North Manchester, Indiana. She also holds a National Incident Management System certificate from the United States Federal Emergency Management Institute, has been trained in crisis intervention, and is a recognized leader in grievance mediation and conflict resolution. Originally from Chicago, Illinois, Dr. Green is also the loving mother of 2 adult children who constantly keep her inspired to believe in the worth and potential of all human beings and to make a difference in the world. The floor, President Dr. Green. I pass on the floor to you, Dr. Green.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sams. I am honored to be greeting you and the conference participants on behalf of Governors State University, located in the Southern Metropolitan region of Chicago. I want to say that the invitation to speak with you this morning lets me know that the work that we all value and think is important will continue. Dr. Sam, your background in restorative justice is extensive and essential to the mission of your conference. And you are an excellent example of the academic quality of the faculty that we have here at Governors State University. Your lineup of sponsors and speakers for this event is also very impressive. I can only imagine the thoughtful and meaningful discussions you have been having over the last few days. When I became the 6th president of Governors State University, we were experiencing a pandemic, social unrest, and economic challenges in the state and in the country. But I had a vision for the university, and it included the creation of a social justice center, which would serve our students and the local community. At Governors State University, our students are richly diverse. Most work full or part-time. Many have children and the responsibilities that come with multi-generational families. And taking a closer look at our students who are ability challenged, we have maybe 3 to 4% of our total student population with those needs. As you can imagine, people struggling with mental health needs have grown tremendously in our community and the student population during the recent onset of the coronavirus pandemic. In fact, this is the #1 cognitive and emotional impairment listed at our service agency on campus for those who are registered. People with chronic health challenges are the next highest categories of need. At Governor State, we will continue to dedicate precious resources, staff, and programs to those challenged with ability limitations and provide assistance that allows them to thrive, to achieve, and to succeed. My goal for the Social Justice Center is to address the policies and practices that magnify prevalent issues in our society, such as inadequate healthcare, underemployment, poor housing resources, childcare affordability, and unequal sentencing and the accompanying legal implications. Realizing this vision will require a multidisciplinary approach, which will include community health, education, psychology, social work, and restorative justice. The work that you are doing as members of this conference and professional bodies is the responsibility of everyone. And I'm so pleased to see you dedicating an entire conference to this understudied area of living and learning. I wish that I could be with you throughout the rest of the day, but I do have other obligations. But I will just end my remarks this morning by repeating what you already know. The work that you are doing is sorely needed and vitally important to creating a just and equitable environment that promotes inclusiveness and civil rights for us all. I want to thank you again for having me this morning, and I want you to enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Green. We were so happy and thrilled to have you here with us today. And we do appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And go Jaguars.
Go Jaguars. Bye-bye.
Bye. Na sequência, iremos...
Now, to continue, we will open the floor to the federal judge and member of the National Council of Justice. Ever since 2019, he's been a member of the National Justice Council, Luis Fernando Tomasi Keppen. The National Justice Council is a public institution that seeks to improve the work of the Brazilian legal system, especially in relation to control and administrative and processual transparency. In 2016, the CNJ established Restorative Justice as a program which was coordinated with mastery by Judge Keppen until last November. And it was a program for implementation and spreading of restorative justice in all of the state and federal courts in Brazil, ensuring the realization of many courses throughout the country, as well as many other deliverables. In this sense, being here in this seminar promoted by Ajufi, we'd like to recognize the very important role that he had in realizing this event in federal justice and restorative justice. He created an important platform for the interconnection of all of these courts, which was a great contribution, a collaborative space which will be used by all of these courts, allowing all of them to keep connected in real time. With the floor, the Counselor of the National Justice Council, Dr. Luis Fernando Tomasi Keppen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to know if you can hear me well. Yes, Counselor, we can hear you. All right, thank you so much. I'd like to salute, firstly, Professor Salm and Professor Cheryl Green. I'd like to tell you how happy I am to be with you in this important event. I intend to register how much it is important for us to think of restorative justice and inclusion of persons with disabilities. Restorative policies are the politics that we practice and we want to see it carried out is based on ethical and relational values. So it is central, it is key for us the way that we take care of people, we take care of the environment, and the topic of the persons with disabilities. The idea is to recognize all, to give voices to all people with or without disabilities. Our target is the inclusive world in which the barriers that stop the welcoming of persons with disabilities will be finished. Restorative justice thinks of care, welcoming of the communities. I remember when I speak on behalf of National Council of Justice, we consider restorative justice not only a method of conflict resolution, although it is part of it, but it is actually a real instrument of social transformation towards the awareness of the relational factors that motivate violence and transgression involving participants of society, so that they all are accountable to their responsibilities. And this perspective, which is transformative, affects everything that we carried out in 2 years, along with the National Council of Justice. We included it in the planning of National Restorative Justice, and it was approved in the plenary of December 2019, when we advanced significantly in the support to the courts. I would like to highlight, and I always highlight in the events, that what we carried out between 2020 and 2021, when I was the coordinator. We delivered a manual for implementing programs and projects of restorative justice, which is exactly a step-by-step on how the courts can use examples of projects that are already ongoing, start projects of restorative justice in the scope of their courts. So this handbook is a step-by-step on the implementation of restorative justice. Also, we promoted the insertion of restorative actions in the programs. In the programs of electronic processes in Brazil, in a way that we can have statistics that are reliable of restorative practices, which is something very important. Also, we delivered a national course on the foundations for the implementation of restorative justice in the courts, in the partnership with Infam, to approximately 400 bench members. We had regional meetings with all the justice courts of Brazil. This was a huge meeting. a gathering that we had per region, as I mentioned. And today we have a report of all the practices that are being carried out in all the courts of Brazil. So today I can assure you that of the 27 state courts and plus the 5 federal courts, they develop restorative justice projects in the scope of their jurisdictions. Also, we delivered an important pedagogical plan to guide the trainings. This plan is used to help courts, for example, when they hire training courses in restorative justice for their bench members, for their judges, and also outsources, so that the restorative justice in the legal system can have the necessary security. To minimize, for example, possibility of errors. We want to have absolutely safe practices in the scope of the federal courts. And also the support and the follow-up, the individual follow-up in the implementation and development of projects of restorative justice along with the courts. And we insert restorative justice as a criteria that regulates the quality award of 2021. We also supported the program Fazendo Justiça of the MF, especially the supervision, and also the programs that were done in 10 different regional courts. The restorative justice project in schools was also carried out, going beyond the limits of the restorative justice practices in the courts, because we understand that restorative justice in this scope is very well outlined. After we organized it in this scope, we can advance with a project of restorative justice in schools, supported by different courts, and we have a pilot project that is happening in the state of Paraná right now. We also offered more recently to the courts a network of restorative justice and a training course in the distance learning modality, providing classes and capacity building material for civil servants and bench members. I would like to talk a little bit about this network that I mentioned, this restorative justice network was created by the managing committee, and it will be the collective space created and kept in a collaborative way, where it will be possible for the courts to exchange messages and also to compilate and broadcast events, as well as provide consultation to materials, study materials, and also the compilation of news and other informations. It will be an important space for construction and fostering of restorative justice. Regarding the network, we understood it was necessary when we had the meeting that I just mentioned with all the courts, and we realized that the courts, when they are in states that are near of them, they didn't know what was happening in the other states, in the neighbor state. So the idea was to integrate them. And by the way, I'd like to say that the federal judge Kadia Roncada contributed so much to this network, and also the judge Carolina Gomes. They provided us with a wonderful instrument for the increase of this network. In the first moment, we imagined that we could do it via email. But I insisted with these two judges, my colleagues, for us to find a tool that could be used to manage this platform. And they were both very dedicated to structure this beautiful tool that today is at the service of the Brazilian judicial branch. Also, the project in schools will contribute a lot to the inclusion policies and the development of techniques and conflict resolution in schools, bringing important social benefits. I also highlight our willingness to follow up the federal justice. We were welcomed by the professionals of the managing committee, and this support has been offered constantly from the federal courts. So the managers of programs and projects of restorative justice are welcome to speak to the committee. I remember that on Thursday I left the council, but I did not leave the restorative justice. It is right here in my heart. I'd like to highlight, lastly, that it all happened due to the work of colleagues, male and female bench members, judges, who collaborated very much with us. I speak on behalf of the members of the Restorative Justice Committee. It's a national committee that we have along with the National Council of Justice. And all who perform a beautiful work, I salute them on the person of Judge Katia Roncada. She's very dear, very competent, and she has provided very relevant service to restorative justice. They are selfless, they are idealist, and they worked in this period of 2 years under my coordination, doing whatever they could in their functions. Restorative justice has a fundamental axis in the relationships, asking people to live in their very dear values, respect, altruism, and searching for the construction of a better, a more just, harmonic, and inclusive co-living. That is, the strengthening of the community relationships. Restorative justice conclaims us to be responsible in our societies in a perspective of welcoming. Therefore, I wish you an excellent work day in this event, and I hope that our good intention become effective, real inclusive policies. Thank you so much. Thank you, Councillor Kaplan. Thank you for the work you have developed in the area of restorative justice in the national level in Brazil. It was a wonderful work. Congratulations to you. And we are thankful for your advocacy of the movement of restorative justice. This movement has become a reference to many countries in the world. It is a country that has been done in Brazil, and it's really wonderful. And you have a lot to do with it. Thank you, Mr. Counselor, for everything. Before handing the floor to our dear Jane, I would like to also mention and repeat a little bit of what Councillor Kaplan mentioned about our dear Katia. Dr. Katia Hokada was the first person to contact me about the possibility of creating an event of this magnitude. And as Dr. Cheryl Green mentioned, it took a long time, a lot of dedication, a lot of love to construct, to build this initiative involving people from different countries, different languages, different ways of thinking. And the one who had the initial idea, the first idea, was Dr. Katia Hokada. She is my professor, and I have learned a lot with her. She's somebody that has an extreme effectiveness, but not only this. She has a very beautiful spirit. She has contributed so much to restorative justice, not only in Brazil, but to the world. So I salute and thank Dr. Katia Hokada. And I would like to thank the group formed by Professor Thomas, Professor Jane, Professor Carla, Sabrina, our dear Stella, and Daisy, for building together this very ambitious and grand project. So I'm really proud to be part of this group, and I thank you for all the effort. Having said that, now we're going to go ahead to the plenary that will be conducted by Professor Jane Dockery from the Eastern Mennonite University.
University. She has also taught at George Mason University and Columbia College, South Carolina. Professor Dockery earned her PhD at the Institute for Conflict Analysis and Resolution at George Mason University, and she holds an undergraduate degree in religious studies and political science from Brown University. She also studied theology at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. From 2007 to 2010, she worked with the Institute for Peace and Justice Education at the Lebanese American University to develop and institutionalize a summer peace-building training program for young leaders interested in peace building in Lebanon. Professor Dockery is vice chair of the board of directors for the Peace Appeal Foundation, an organization that supports peace and conflict resolution processes globally through inclusive, multi-track, multi-sector interventions designed to achieve agreed, fair, and just outcomes. She's also a member of the Association for Conflict Resolution, where she served as chair for research section, the International Peace Research Association, where she served on the council, and the International Studies Association. Professor Dockery works in work is deeply influenced by Catholic teaching on peace and social justice. Professor Dockery is the author of 2 books, Learning Lessons from Waco, When the Parties Bring Their Gods to Negotiation Table, edited by Syracuse University Press, and the Little Book of Strategic Negotiations, Negotiating During Turbulent Times, by Good Books. Dr. Egberto de Almeida Penido é juiz do Tribunal
Dr. Egberto de Almeida Penedo, he's a judge of the Justice Court of São Paulo, having a degree with mediation, transformative mediation, also nonviolent communication and restorative justice. He's a member judge of the coordination of infant and youth in the court of São Paulo, part of the Center of Restorative Justice of the state of São Paulo, a member judge of the Commission of Restorative Justice in the National Council of Justice, a trainer judge of the National School of Training of Bench Members. And also, he's a great friend, above all, a great friend. So I'm really proud of him, of all the work that he has developed in the court. Now I hand the floor to them. Welcome, Professor Jane.
Now, I'd like to open the floor to Professor Jane so she can continue our seminar.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here. I am a white woman. I am wearing a black top with a multi-stranded colorful necklace and matching earrings. I'm sitting in my office. You can see the bookcase behind me, and a little bit you can see some watercolors that I acquired when I was working in Myanmar, in Burma, in preparation for the peace process that has now been a little bit derailed. I am the executive director of the Center for Justice and Peace Building at Eastern Mennonite University, where the Zaire Institute is located. And you all heard from Howard Zaire, who is a long colleague and friend. I've been here at the Center for Justice and Peace Building for 20 years. A bit like Dr. Green, I was put into this leadership role as the pandemic was bearing down on us and all of the social unrest and opportunities. I would add to those 2 factors that are disrupting our world and creating many challenges for all of us. I would add a global shift toward authoritarian political movements, which are always devastating for the rights and needs of those with disabilities. No authoritarian movement in history has made it a priority to protect the rights of those with disabilities. So any one of those alone threatens our inclusive and equitable world, which is why I have found the last 2 days of participating in this conference illuminating, exciting, and inspiring. And yesterday, we included an opportunity using Circle to let everyone have voice. And today, we get to hear what folks were talking about in those circles. And I'm very eager to hear that. Interested to hear what other people were taking from the input in the first day and a half. Because I took a lot from it. I have lots and lots of notes and ideas. So I'm eager to hear what other people have to say. So we're going to start by opening it up. And I have the honor of inviting the first Portuguese speaking group which is circles 1 and 2, to speak for up to 20 minutes between them. And I am going to use first names because I do not want to butcher anybody's name, but I think I can do the first names. Mari, Eva, Larissa, and Mathilde are our speakers for circles 1 and 2.
Bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone.
Obrigada por esse convite, por fazer parte
I'm very happy for this invitation to be a part
desse evento,
of this event
além da equipe
and also
do João Clemente,
for the Instituto João Clemente team
Justiça Restaurativa.
in this moment when we are discussing
Eu vou
the implementation of restorative justice.
sobre o nosso
I'm going to talk a little bit about our meeting,
encontro com as parceiras
and I also have my partners, Eva and Larissa. Matilde, unfortunately, wasn't able to connect.
falar pouco mais alto.
I'm going to try and speak a little louder.
Então, vamos lá.
Okay.
Eu sou Mari Nascimento.
My name is Mari Nascimento. I'm a therapist.
Mulher negra,
I am a Black woman. I'm 54 years old.
cabelos grisalhos,
I have gray hair, a medium length.
bege,
I'm wearing a beige shirt
esquerdo,
with some details in green on the green and lilac on the left side.
uma
On the back, there's a light pink wall.
E onde o que nos norteou, né, no nosso encontro foi uma das perguntas que era
So we have a question on our meeting. In which way the restorative justice may support and strengthen the meeting of needs of people with disability?
falamos sobre a saúde
And we talked about
da Covid.
health during this moment, COVID.
A minha fala foi sobre a rede
My speech was about network, the network we have, the importance it has to look at people with disabilities.
que a gente está
In this moment that we're going through the pandemic, I had contact
quando do círculo
with this issue by participating in the circle that is going on in the João Clemente Institute.
vi o quanto
And I realized how important it is
para a rede.
for us to look at networks because just restorative justice only makes sense through networks.
Então, a rede é a história
So networks are the story and the history of each person that is going through the restorative process.
essa pessoa com deficiência, do qual a gente
The persons with disability, the people we exclude,
Restorativa veio para incluir.
well, restorative justice came to include them so that they are part
Tem a
of the
responsabilidade.
network, so that we are co-responsible for each other.
Mapear a rede e fazer a integração dessas redes.
Mapping a network and integrating these networks, well, this is possible through restorative restorative practices, sorry.
Temos tanta deficiência
We,
em atendimentos, em profissões.
well, we have people with disability,
E essa
we have professionals. Well, sometimes there's a lack of communication, and I think that we can really go really far with communication to better support
vou abrir aspas para poder
these people. I'm going to quote
de uma das
someone from one of the people
não está
who are not here with us today, but
essa
who asked me to mention what she said. Now I'm quoting. Fostering and constructing spaces to exchange experiences, places of training, and of access to opportunities that are directed towards persons with disability and are seniors, understanding that each subject brings with them their history and their life experience. With this, they also bring about their specific needs that need to be met in order to promote their autonomy and their freedom. This speech was based on a family case in which a person had a cardiovascular incident and now they have a disability, and the family had a very hard time to include this person after this. And also to have a support network for this case. Another issue had to do with a person that talked about the importance of speaking to himself and to everyone in the group that he was a white man, that he was heterosexual, that he is a privileged person, and how much it's important for him to participate in restorative processes so that he can look at these differences and that he's learning so much and he can bring restorative practices into his life, not only professionally, but also as a way of life.
Desculpe, mas eu estou pouco emocionada.
Sorry, I get a little emotional because it was a very emotional moment yesterday for me.
Outra questão também falada foi
Another issue that was discussed was that we should increase the quantity of police precincts that are specialized in persons with disability in Brazil and other institutions like IJC, the João Clemente Institute, so that we can bring training to different locations, public and private locations, in order to support persons with disabilities, both in their health, education, accessibility, affirmative action programs, work. Me, I'm participating a little bit in the João Clemente Institute. I see that this network works very well. What they're able to offer to the people who are there is great. They are also able to expand a little bit outside the institution itself. But how important would it be to multiply the amount of institutions like IJC? So the João Clemente Institute should have the capacity to train many people throughout the country, because I see that the professionals are there, are very dedicated. They're people who have this co-responsibility and they're ready to be near us in this moment that starts with this project, Restorative Justice for Persons with Disabilities. I'm going to talk about a few general issues as well that were mentioned in the group on this space that is restorative justice. How important it is to be in this space, especially looking towards an environment that has people with disabilities. And it's important to know I don't know. Could you explain it to me? Finding out that I used a wrong term, and since I didn't know, how can I enter dialogue with other people so that I know the correct terms, for instance, and can learn about this and other things? A space in which I can bring all my worries about this topic. I realized the space being built in the way I was supported with the case that we're working in. When we're supporting the case, I'm sorry, because all of the support actions that I had, even before I entered the Instituto João Clemente, were experiences that I couldn't bring to this case. And so when I arrived at the IJC, my first pre-circle that I did with Carla, we prepared ourselves. We sat many times with Kellen and Daniela to talk. We asked many questions. But on the day of our pre-circle, our session took less than 10 minutes because the important part was to just turn on your camera, look at those kids. There are 3 of them. Say hello, present myself, and just connect with them visually, because they had never made a call, a video call. They had never been in a video call before. So everything that we planned went out the window, because first and foremost, we needed to just connect and see each other. And this is how we built our space in a completely different way than we would have in a traditional restorative justice, where we have a case. And well, in this case, it wasn't exactly like that. The case showed up through storytelling about how their day went, how they're feeling, not really referring to the specific question itself. We were talking about how their lunch was, how it was to be seeing each other so many times. Sometimes you're just looking at each other. And after our moment with them, we have a space between the 4 of us to be able to talk about all the issues, all the worries we have, all the things we don't know, knowing that we have to build this together with different tools to be able to support them. I'd like to thank everyone for the space. I'd like to thank Dr. Katya for organizing this event and giving us the opportunity to bring our voices to the world, and that everyone can come in and add more to this effort. Now, I'd like to open the floor. Who else wants to speak? Good morning, everyone. My name is Eva Portugal. I am a Black woman. I have black hair, shoulder length. I am a person with a physical disability. I use a wheelchair, and I'm using a purple shirt and a lilac glasses. And behind me is a brown wall. In the restorative circle that I had a pleasure to participate in yesterday, we talked about people with disability in the context of the pandemic. And I confess that I was very happy to participate because it was the first time that I participated in a circle talking about people with disability. And one of the things that was said during the circle was about barriers that people with disabilities face in their day-to-day life. And unfortunately, in many cases, social isolation led to even more invisibility for people with disabilities. And so throughout these last almost 2 years of the pandemic, we had to adapt ourselves to new technologies in order to be able to work, in order to be able to deal with our day-to-day needs, and even to meet up with people. And so people with disabilities had to go through even one more hurdle, the technological barrier in this case. In the context of restorative justice, in this context, restorative justice is very important because restorative justice allows us to wake up to a new way of looking at the world, a new way of dealing with issues and understanding the way we live amongst each other. And based on this understanding, I was able to see in our conversation that the most important thing for us as people is, well, that's very important for the life of people with disability in restorative justice, is to have this vision, this point of view that RJ has in relation to people that are involved in its processes, no matter if they are disabled or not. But people with disabilities need to have a different kind of lens to look at them because they need to be seen, they need to be heard, to be respected with no prejudice, with no judgment.
Sobre o capacitismo, sem capacitismo.
And especially without ableism. During this event, we heard about this theme, and oftentimes this ableism might be hidden under a disguise as being protection. And when this was said yesterday, I was very happy because I realized that people understand this, that we must look at people beyond their disabilities. And during the circle, we were able to understand that there's something very important to be developed inside us, which is the understanding that we are human beings, that we are complex beings, that each one of us has their own history, that each one of us has their own way of living. And with this, each person brings their own specific needs. People need to be understood in such a way that their dignity is respected, that their dignity is understood. And like Madi said, when we're not able to understand people's needs, we can always ask them. Talking, dialogue is always the best path so that we are able to know people, so that we are able to understand their points of view and to respect their will. And I'm very happy to participate in this event. Thank you very much.
Now I hand the floor to Lari. Thank you, Eva. I hand the floor very gently. Along with Mari and Eva, I participated in this circle on disability in the context of the pandemic. I had the opportunity, the wonderful opportunity, to bring the story of Duda, my niece, and the story of my family. Because my niece, Duda, she was born with an intellectual disability, diagnosed with a light disability, but for us, it was something new. We didn't have anyone in our family with disabilities. And we started to understand that we needed to go ahead and understand how we could facilitate her life, bring her some treatment. And this search, in many moments, has been quite hard. We are new on this, so many times we don't know what to do exactly, where to go, who to ask for information. And Duda now it's been 2 years more or less that she stopped studying. Before the beginning of the pandemic, she was in a private school. She was in the second year. And when the pandemic started and there were online classes, she could not keep up with her group. And it brought a lot of distress to us. For a little while, we tried to have her study online, but it was not possible. And my brother's family suffered a financial difficulty due to the pandemic. My sister-in-law lost her job. My brother lost many clients, and they decided to take her out of school and put her in a public school. And it's been 2 years now, and until today, she couldn't have a vacancy in a public school. So we are really suffering with this. We've been trying to put her in a school. She is in 3 different lists, waiting lists of schools in her region. And it seems that next year she will be able to go back to school. But for a person who needs support, 2 years without going to school is really, really desperate. It made us very desperate. And we have learned a lot with this situation. She went to Jules Clement Institute. She was diagnosed there. And since her case is a not a very serious case, they informed that she's not treated there, but they referred us to some professionals that she needs to start visiting. And we are taking her to these therapy sessions, classes. And this is our quest and our discovery process. I said in the group that it's been a while that Duda has the possibility to be independent, autonomous, to have a career, to go to whatever place she wants to go. But for this, she needs to have this opening of the whole scenario so that she can choose where she's going and what she's going to do. The suggestion that I bring to you this forum is to create networks as restorative justice normally does, so we can have these professionals, psychologists, pedagogy professionals, speech professionals, speech therapists, and other professionals, that they can assist people who do not have the financial possibility to pay for the service of these professionals. So we reflected a lot upon the situation of these people who do not have this financial conditions to have a cell phone, to have a laptop, and especially to be able to pay for the service of these professionals. Professionals that can assist children that are needy or offering an amount with a discount. And also we should broadcast this network so that together we can offer the service to whoever needs it. So basically this is what I have to offer to you. And to be able to bring this perspective to you. And I thank very much to Dr. Katia and Dr. Sabina for this space. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. I want to see if I can just make a couple of summaries and observations from what you said and also from what we have been hearing from others. As I've been listening, one of the things that has that I've heard, I think repeatedly, is a challenge for us to move past the helping paradigm. When we help somebody else, we create an essentially uneven and unequal relationship that is disempowering and disrespectful. And so one of the things I'm hearing is nothing about us without us. So the voices of those with disabilities need to be brought into the circle and the network. And that is a way to make a big change. And I think the appeal of the restorative justice paradigm and working in networks is that it has the potential to level out that unevenness, to give voice and create space, not give voice. You can't give voice to another person, to allow and invite and actively embrace the voices of those with disabilities, respecting their autonomy. And I think we heard that in this circle feedback. Another thing that I've been noticing in the conference that came up a little bit here is restorative justice as a way of living, as a way of being in community, being in network with one another, and a really big paradigm shift of how we think of ourselves, as we think here of ourselves as connected, interconnected, mutually learning. I liked the idea that the privileged need to be in circle so that they can hear voices other than just other privileged people, that we need to create these spaces. And then restorative justice as a practice, as an actual set of practices that can be implemented in different places. I think coming from the United States, where we have a significant problem with policing that is not helpful for many communities, particularly communities of color, but is seen as kind of a militarized presence in communities. Hearing of police precincts where there are people who can help and help people who are often invisible is been both distressing for me about where our policing is, and also a hopeful, like it can be different. And that working in restorative justice kind of networks and thinking about it a little differently can help my country do something that I think Brazil is well ahead of us. So those are things that I've been hearing and listening to. And I think I want to turn it over to Egberto for comments and for the next. What are you hearing?
Obrigado, Jane, mas antes vou passar para
Thank you,
Eva.
Janie. Before that, I'm going to hand the floor to Eva. She has something to say, and then I will hand it back to me.
Muito obrigada, doutora Edberto.
Thank you, Dr. Egberto. I'd like to share an experience that we had
Durante a pandemia.
during the pandemic.
Eu fiz o curso de mediação
I took the mediation course, the
durante
basic course,
audiência
and during a hearing,
com o pessoal
I shared it with the guys in the circle yesterday. And during a hearing, I was in the internship, and in this hearing, this lawyer came, and in that hearing, he was blind. He was representing the party. When people realized that he was blind, they were a little afraid on how to assist him, how to address him in that situation, facing the technologies. When we started the hearing, we handed the floor to him, and he shared that he had a visual disability, and he told us the difficulties that he was going through to participate in that hearing. In that moment, I needed to ask what was, and also we mentioned that in the circles, that it is necessary to understand the needs of other people. In that moment, I needed to ask him what I needed to do so I could help him, so that he would not be jeopardized or his participation could be jeopardized in that hearing. And we mentioned it here, the importance to hear people. In that moment was really crucial. It was a hearing that really was really remarkable for me. We need to understand that people have their specificities and they need to be respected. They need to be listened to in the context and in the difficulties that they are going through. Thank you so much. Thank you, Eva. Well, since it's my first participation here, I'm going to contextualize myself. I'm a man. I'm a white man. I'm 57 years old. I'm wearing glasses. I'm wearing a suit, a blue shirt, and a dark gray suit, a red tie. I have a beard. My hair is gray. I'm in a small office. In the background, there's a white background of wardrobes and a door. There are a few personal objects and books on my right. Well, before talking about the strength of what was shared with us today, I would like to congratulate and thank the organization of this seminar, this 2-day seminar, in which I had the opportunity to access the content of these 2 days. There are events that are good. There are events that are important, but there are events that are really indispensable. And this seminar is in this category, in my opinion. It is not only important, but indispensable for us to look and to provide visibility to this dialogue concerning restorative justice and the people with disabilities. It is a gathering of strengths of learning, and we are just in the beginning of it. And we need to think of the quality that this work needs. So I'd like to thank Gil Clement Institute dedication of the professionals in this institute, on how you participate in this universe of the care that goes through this activity. And just by having this seminar, it is really something wonderful. I'd like to salute the professionals that have been pioneers in the restorative justice area, bringing visibility to this issue of the people with disabilities. I'm talking about Professor João Salm. He has thought of restorative justice very deeply, with great quality, with his strength and transformative potency. After these remarks, I'd like to go straight to the comments on this share, showing how these restorative meetings are strong and transformative. Our restorative justice can be called the justice of affection. And in this mood has the transformative strength. With the comments that were shared by Eva, by Larissa, Mari, they were fantastic. They touched me deeply. I am also a white man. I'm a judge. I have a role in the judicial power, and I have many privileges. And even though my privileges, I have looked at some situations with a lot of pain in this life process of how I use the privileges that I have. And I'd like to share, and I think I never shared it publicly. I was born with a dysfunction called DEL. And at that time, there was a deep lack of knowledge to this type of language dysfunction. The lack of ability to deal with the language codes. I had that problem. And it was necessary to have a lot of therapeutical work with speech therapists, psychotherapists, and this type of therapy shows the strength of the network for people who have privileges. And despite that, the way that we deal with these challenges is very different. My brother also was born with a dysfunction, and until today, he could not go to college. So the way that he lives his processes took him to different choices in life. Took him to a place of introversion, and that's okay. If at the time we had restorative practices and an understanding to the look, the medical look, the social look to the people with disabilities, maybe my brother's choices had been different. But today he is living, he's making better choices, and we are giving support to him. So it's even more important to me, the realization of this seminar, because it is a reflection for life. And as Professor Stella mentioned, the amount of people who deal with some time of situation that is considered a disability, she provided very meaningful data for us. 44% of the population dealing with disabilities. One in every 10 women presents some type of disability, and also a large number of children. So these disabilities are related to other vulnerability problems. When a person is an elderly person or a person from different ethnicity, a different gender. So it's completely important to look and to provide visibility to these problems. Duda's story touches me deeply. Larissa, because I can relate to many things, and given the specificities of each case, and it is the key, as we have seen in this scenario, we have a general picture of the people with disabilities, but we need to have a look, a specific look of how each person lives these challenges. We need to look at how people experience the problems, the difficulties of ableism. The restorative justice has the power to contribute with what has been done already. Because this institution, João Clemente, has is over 60 years old. It's a lot of story. The restorative movement has a lot to learn with this history, this trajectory. Well, the restorative justice enables not only the possibility of bringing a space for these people, and also the visibility of network support networks with different perspectives, showing the interdependency and the importance of this. And it's important that this group dedicated their time and their work regarding the issue problems in the pandemic times. How the action of one person can affect the whole collective. In that period, it was clear the challenges of communication to deal with the challenges, and the communication is a key point of the restorative justice. So how we communicate, how we listen to each other. So the restorative justice with its methodology, as we know, it's not reduced on the learning of techniques. We have techniques, but this set of techniques, they make this communication go from a look that judges to a look that understands, that embraces, that visits the profound humanity of a person, of a human being who is multidimensional. And then it opens possibilities to start understanding and create, to use the creativity to deal with the challenges that are quite important in the times that we're living. We have been living very challenging times, and they make us reflect our actions. The three of them talked about the network, and Janie also reinforced this. And definitely, when we talk about restorative justice, we are not talking about conciliation. We're talking about a work that is done in the collective, between the one who is affected to the one who affected, but within a community, a support network. It is a network that also needs support. And I have the experience with my parents, a family that deals with this situation, and they repeat violence situations without even being aware of it. And they look at the situation with an outdated perspective, looking at the problem as a defect. Even there are religious issues involved, and they need support. The key in the restorative process is the awareness. I will finish this comment for this first group. We have another group to listen to, but in Brazil, the guiding normative of restorative justice, which is Resolution 225 of the National Council of Justice, brings in its key concept of what is restorative justice, showing that it is a coordinated system of techniques that views this word that is very important, the awareness. So we need to be aware of the need of awareness. What we need, what we look for in this process is to become more aware, to have awareness, so that we can move towards transformation in a conscious way, to bring the strength of each person who are in a vulnerable position, but they can handle the situation. And how can they do that? Building meaning. This is the strength of the restorative meeting. We can handle pain, suffering, when we build sense and meaning. The restorative justice in the collective provides this transformative choice. So thank you so much for my participation. Now I'm going to call the next group.
Which also met yesterday, which is Maida. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Maida. And Vanessa, are you here? Please, Maida and Vanessa, and the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Egberto. Can everyone hear me? All right. It's an honor to be here in the presence of all of you, especially Dr. Egberto. I've been his student in some restorative justice trainings. There's an emotional appeal because one of the first courses that I did was with restorative justice with Dr. Egberto. I'd like to congratulate everyone, thank everyone, Dr. Cachoncada, Maíra, Carla. And today, our contribution, Maíra will also talk a little bit together with me. My name is Vanessa. I'm a lawyer. I am a restorative justice facilitator. I work in domestic violence cases in the Justice Court of the city of Ponta Grossa. And I am also a president of the Jabaquara Lawyers Bar Association Restorative Justice Program. So when we started the circle, we thought of what we could do to collaborate so that the circle had a certain wealth, a certain richness of particularities. And to me, even though I am a family member of a disabled person, I was very touched by Larissa's contributions, Mari's contributions, by Dr. Egberto. It's something very familiar to me. I come from a family where there are many people who are people with disabilities, especially mental disabilities, schizophrenic members of my family. My son also has some non-diagnosed mental issues. And I know it's very hard to work with this when we don't have a multidisciplinary support. I'm a solo mom and I raise my child and my family is from the countryside. So I feel very deeply, even though I have my privileges, even then, I do have a little bit of a hard time in building relationships because many times each person, they have their own particularities, their own uniqueness. And end up being very introverted. And we need all the support that restorative justice proposes, especially inside the legal system, the judiciary system. So I especially was thinking, well, maybe this isn't my place to speak, but we in the meetings, each one of us exchanged so much about our personal experiences. So we thought that this construction of these spaces would be very important and very challenging, especially for me, because it was the first time that I acted as a facilitator inside a theme that I don't know that much about. Why do I say this? Because we picked some paintings, some screens that Maida will share with us. So we picked this painting, and when we were developing this, me and Maida were discussing, well, me especially, I said, I don't know what to develop here. I was telling her, I don't know, they don't have heads. Why am I telling you this? Inside my ignorance, my ableist ignorance, I wasn't able at that moment to see the possibility of using these paintings. So we started developing this, and Maida, with all her delicateness, with all her wisdom, and she's an artist as well. She's an amazing person. You must all meet Maida. She's amazing. I love doing circles with her. And so she conducted me to understanding what the process would be when we were building a script. And for me, this was wonderful because I was able to realize the size of my ignorance. So I'm going to describe, well, I'm going to apologize because I don't know very well how to describe this painting, but we have three different torsos in each canvas. Well, there's one in each canvas. There's three canvases, and some of them have heads, some of them don't, and then some of the members, their legs and arms are cut off. One shows the side, one shows the front, and one shows the back of the torso. And then when we exposed this inside the circle, I was the first person to comment on what this image made me feel. And I asked to speak last because I wanted to hear the perception of the other people who were there with us. And to my great surprise, once again, I was extremely touched because insights, there were just so many insights. Maida, if you want to take out the screen, we're fine. Okay. So, since I'm still a student, I like to do my self description. I forgot. I have red hair. I'm white. I have brown eyes. I have a necklace and a black shirt. And behind me, there's a white wall. And therefore, the most challenging part of this possibility of this experience is the construction of spaces that are non-moralist, non-normative. So for me, especially, well, I'm sharing my experience with you of trying to question my day-to-day life in my production and in the way I operate my function as a facilitator. So I question myself a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. And throughout the process, many times I felt very challenged during the time that we were building the circle together. And I exposed this to people, and to be a safe space, I needed to also share my insecurity, even though I was a facilitator. And it was wonderful because I was also fostered, I was also received support. So, what can we do? What can we promote in this space? What it would be like to enable our meeting? What kind of meeting should we have in order to build emotional, effective ties? What to do with the feelings that come up over there? Because for me, it's very usual for me to have circles with other themes. So, to me, it was an experience that led to a lot of learning. I mentioned to Carla that I feel more encouraged. I feel more excited to learn more about this, especially about ableism, which I think is something I'm very affected by. And then in the first check-in, we had a question came to mind. I saw we had two interpreters there with us. They were taking turns, 20 minutes each. And I was thinking, well, they're members of this group, aren't they? And so during the circle, I was starting to question, is the interpreter a part of the circle? Are they outside the circle? And that's when I remembered the teachings of Kay Pranes in the Manual for Hope, where she says that a circle building exercise is an organic exercise. So why shouldn't we take in those people who are bringing in their knowledge of inclusion? So I was imagining that I might be breaking protocol, and I said, well, I have Kay Pran is supporting me here. She says it's organic. The circle should be organic. So let's come in and let's let the interpreters come into the circle. And they were had very, very powerful things to say. Not only the people who were participating before, but the interpreters, they brought very important things. And I was thinking, your brains must be amazing because inside my ignorance, and I'm saying this, it was the first time that I realized that it was possible for a person to self translate themselves. I just thought, wow, this is amazing. And once they came into the group, I felt that our connection got even larger after the interpreters came in. And I just said, wow, organically, we made horizontal relationships happen inside our circle. So our circles are more than just physical way to gather in a circle. It's a cost benefit relationship for working in groups, a horizontal relationship. It's a ethical, political posture. We're working with different languages, including sign language. So it's really a relationship in which we're building knowledge. And I was just thinking, wow, this is spectacular. I'm like, I got emotional. And I just said, wow, this is history being made. This is social transformation happening in the judicial sector. I've already used the judicial sector. I got to say I didn't have a good experience. And it's one of the reasons why I fight for restorative justice, because it might be able to actually make effective our own negotiations, like in a circle. So this space, the conversation circle, it really brings us this possibility of opening up our thoughts into a continuous movement, reflecting, thinking, modifying the way we think, so that the participants can recognize themselves as the conductors of their actions, of their own possibilities of being more than they are currently. Paulo Freire, in Societies in Transitions, he says that social actors are in a process of discovery of their own potentials in the construction of reality, which is historical, and it is affected by struggles for defense of life. And this is the thought that resonated in my mind when I saw these girls translating the circle into sign language. And like I said in the beginning, I work as a facilitator in the Ponta Grossa court in the for domestic violence. Why shouldn't we also talk about deaf women who are great institutional victims? They are really institutional victims due to communication barriers, due to the lack of specialized professionals who know sign language. So if a deaf woman calls 180, one of the emergency numbers for domestic violence, they aren't able to communicate. So they need to have another person who hears to call. So oftentimes that doesn't happen. So we have a possibility to bring this wealth to the circle, the Brazilian Sign Language, which unfortunately a lot of us don't know a lot about it. Me, myself, I don't know very little Brazilian Sign Language. So for me, it's beautiful to build this historic dialogue inside the circle, which builds collective knowledge when we're able to privilege the critical speech and the sensible hearing, really surpassing and going beyond the subject object dichotomy, and that now we are subjects and not just objects of a given process. So it was thinking of all of these things that we're talking, we're exchanging information, and we decided to involve art because it really moves our feelings. I was very moved. I'm talking to Maida about this painting every day now. And that's it. I mean, I just like to thank everyone for this opportunity of being in such an important historical space. And it really was great for me. And now I'd like to open the floor to my dear friend Maida. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for the floor. I'm not very good at protocol. I'm just going to say that now. I want to describe myself first. I am 1 meter 70 centimeters tall. I am black. I have glasses. I'm wearing a purple shirt. I won this T-shirt actually from a good friend of mine, or actually this necklace I won from an artist friend of mine who is a person with disabilities. First, I'd like to thank Carla Boin, who invited me, and Katia Roncada, who in such a lovely and loving way she she conducted this. I am an intellectual disability person, a person with intellectual disability. Sorry. And I told Vanessa, well, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I don't know if I'm going to be able to speak tomorrow. Here I am. I'm trying to speak to you, because the great thing that we must think as persons with disability, or if you don't have disability, is overcoming your limits. And Vanessa talked about those paintings before. This is a painting for that my father made, that, and we had to work with this in a group with persons with disability. And Nick, this amazing person, I think you might have heard of him. He had something to say about this. So, what do I want to say with this image? Our vital signs, well, it doesn't matter if you're called normal or if you're called a person with disability, your torso, even if you don't have the rest of the structure, if you're alive, you have vitality. If you have vitality, you're alive. And if you're alive, you're a person with rights. And we must think about citizenship and public policies for everyone in the different conditions that they are in. Do you know why? Because you don't know how magical it is to have socialization. Not only the circle, but when you're talking about love, when you're talking about physical contact, when you're having physical contact, when you can talk about your ideas, when you can talk in this universe that has so many different prejudices and biases, I only have, and you can say what you feel, you can contribute, because oftentimes the conflicts you have inside your heart, when you hear someone else who looks at that conflict in a different way, it can transform you completely. It's the power of the word, the power of speech, the power of dialogue. That's what the circle does, so that we can actually value people. We think differently. And I think that's a very important proposal connected to the circles. And I like to bring this image. This was our circle. It was beautiful. It was mixed race. It was made by amazing people who brought their histories, their stories, and shared their feelings in the most beautiful way possible. This is so restorative. This is justice. This is citizenship. I have two friends here. I have my friends who participated in other circles. And it was just so amazing. And I call all the teachers, I call them, and professors, I call them teachers or professors. So Dr. Katia Honkada, she really brought this universe to us in a very effective, very emotional way. And just to finish up what I have to say, I'm going to bring something that I like to share, something that's made of images. These are my friends, and I want to describe them to you. All of them are persons with disabilities. And we've been friends for 30 years. We studied in special schools, but we go out, we have fun, we kiss, we hug, and do everything else. We're normal people. Okay? We're normal people. And that's what love is being happy. And I like to close up this my speech with the following issue. Nando Reis, the poet, says, the person who cares about other person cares about someone who they might not even know. Those who open their heart and love truly, they donate themselves and give of themselves just out of humanity. If you have empathy and you struggle and move forward, you move forward forever. Facing the challenges that life brings, we know that life is precious. Everyone who has compassion can understand. Thank you so much. See you next time. I hope we're able to meet once again with more love, more even more effectiveness, and that justice can reach everyone, and that social networks go beyond even the justice system, which is very important, but may they reach the communities, the courts, our homes, because the first prejudice that we face is the first place we might face prejudice in our home. Because I like to thank my mom also. Only she can know how much she suffered for me to reach here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maida. Thank you, Vanessa. We could spend a long time sharing all that we felt. Thank you for this treasure that you brought to us. Sometimes the silence will speak about the things. I would like to talk about two aspects: this organic construction, the reading of the images, the power of images. There's no doubt that we need to look at the specific transformations of the facilitators. But when we are aware of the circle, as you well said, it is not just a physical exposition. It seems the circle has its own intelligence, the knowledge of each of the persons in the circle. And when we surrender to this flow, things present themselves. So this sharing of production of knowledge is really key. This, what you shared is really wonderful. Thank you. Maíra, your words, well, they brought me many things, but I'd like to highlight that the restorative justice that looks at the humanity of people deeply, understands that a person cannot be reduced to an act or a choice. So this person is much deeper. This person has different causes. So this look to the people with disabilities, with their strengths. We know that life is a deep mystery, and the picture of Nick shows that, and his testimony shows that. Thank you for sharing with us. Now I will hand the floor to Jane.
Hello. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to keep my comment here very short. The other day, I was speaking with Kay Pranis, who I think has spent a lot of time in Brazil. Some of you may have worked with her in Circle. And she said, in Brazil, I learned the power of love that comes into Circle in a way that I have never experienced anywhere else. So I understand what she was talking about now. Thank you. And I'm going to keep us moving. We have a couple more circles. Thank you so much, Vanessa and Maíra. Really powerful. Yeah, I don't think I have words. Thank you. Our next circle is, oh my gosh, Jasa? Please correct me when you get on and get the microphone. And Eliana.
Jasa is good.
Jasa's good, okay.
Geisa.
Jasa.
Nem mesmo brasileiros conseguem muitas vezes pronunciar meu nome.
Not even Brazilians can pronounce my name well, so don't worry.
That's okay. Then nobody ever spelled either of my names right, so.
It's Geisa, just for the record, it's Geisa. My name is Geisa. I'm a psychologist. I'm a facilitator. I'm about to turn 47. I'm a white woman. I have green eyes. My hair is wavy up to the shoulder. And they have some lights. In the background, there are some plants and also books and a little doll that I received from my youngest son for Mother's Day. So this little doll represents a psychologist. He gave it to me when he was little. I would like to tell you that I'm really, really happy to be here with you. And I'm a little nervous as well. I acknowledge the importance of this event. And I thank so much the organizers for this initiative. I thank Sabrina for inviting me to participate here. And I thank you for your presence, the presence of the ones who care. I will start my talk making a brief comment on what touched me in the facilitation in this meeting. inspired in this circular process. And then Eliane later will bring a proposal brought by this group. The meeting was facilitated by myself and Ricardo, and there were other 9 people. We had the sign language, Brazilian Sign Language interpreters as well. The first point that I want to highlight in this strong meeting is that none of the participants had disabilities. And the second point is the topic that was central to me was the acknowledgement of the structure and the culture that is ableist and its manifestations in our own attitudes, in the attitudes of people with disabilities and family members of people with disabilities, the institutions, and the society. So all of them have ableist attitudes at some point. And the third point that is really dear to me is that our proposals, they speak for our needs facing this time that we live. Proposals that are about this space of people who do not have disabilities, but they feel touched by the cause of the people with disabilities. The proposals in general, they talk about the importance of spaces, qualified spaces, collective organizations to bring awareness for education and to build a society that is less ableist and more inclusive. So now I will hand the floor to Eliane, and she will tell you a little bit about our ideas. Thank you so much. Good morning to all ladies, gentlemen, people from all genders. I received the floor feeling a bit nervous because it's a very dear moment, very unique moment to be here, not only as a listener, as I was until yesterday, but to have this space for speaking and listening. The voice has no use if there is no listening, so we need to have ways to talk about things that make us a little unquiet, but also we need to listen so that this construction of understanding happens among us. I will describe myself. I am a 44-year-old woman. My hair is wavy in the height, a little above the height of the shoulders. I have a few gray hair. I'm wearing a green blouse and there's a beige wall behind me in a piece of the door as well. Well, after describing myself and the space, I'd like to say that the discussions that we had in the circle yesterday and anchored by what Geisa mentioned, for not having people with disabilities among us in the circles, we just speak for ourselves from our own place. And I want to say that our dialogue was established in terms of identifying ways for the restorative justice to be a support and a way to provide strength to help provide assistance to people with disabilities, but not only looking at the people with disabilities, so we can learn how to welcome, to receive the questions that the issues that the people with disability bring to us. We can recognize our ableism, the ableism that we have in a smaller or bigger degree in us. And this was basically the topic of our discussion yesterday. And also paying attention to the basic responses of restorative justice especially when people that have a relationship, when they suffer some kind of damage, the needs arise. The needs are there, but when there is a damage, the needs are potentialized. And with these needs that come from the damages in a given situation, in social circumstances, economical and cultural circumstances, also there are obligations and they require reparation. The group yesterday, tried to talk about these possibilities for the restorative justice to be a means of support the strengthening in the context of education. This way, what was discussed by us, and we had no participant with disabilities, but we had among us people that had disabled people in their families. So we reflect on how we could constitute ourselves throughout our journey. So the proposal that we brought, and me as a representative of the group, I can say that we could work in the scope of public schools, private schools, and other spaces of the community to carrying out circles that focus in the explanations, because we are thirsty for elucidation, explanation. We need to recognize that there are different diversities, different types of diversity, but our society was built based on prejudice and exclusion and inequality. So these explanations have to do with the particularities, the specificities of the people with disabilities, to combat ableism, to promote inclusion, and to be careful to be guided by love and respect, and not only the laws. We need to relate. The laws are here, but we need to relate beyond the laws. We need to relate in the humanity that we are formed by. And also to think of the management of conflicts, the resolution of conflicts that are already here in our society that were done by us. So the meeting was good for this enlightening and for explanations to generate, as Dr. Egberto mentioned, awareness, to bring this awareness to the biggest number possible of people, how they can deal with the diversity of people with disabilities, even being a mechanism of support for people who have people with disabilities in their family. They also have difficulties to deal with the challenges of this reality. From the reflections that we had in the event, we can recognize, we can acknowledge our ignorance and our limitation to deal with these situations, and we need help. In the circles, the purpose is to involve collaborators who work in schools and other institutions of the community, people who deal with people with disabilities, and also the family members of these people with disabilities who have their own difficulties and pains. They also need to have support. So what Maida talked about her mother really moved us. So her mother knows what she went through. I have two children and they don't have disabilities, but even if they're not people with disabilities, you ask yourself, am I doing my best? And the mothers, they have this guilt on them. They always think they should to do more. So the idea was to have the ability to have an open dialogue, to bring awareness and to bring information, explanation. So for everyone who intend to work guided by respect and and the humanity that is within us, beyond the impositions that we see in society and the impositions of the capital that many times guide the actions of people. So it was basically the context that we fostered and we built the group, which was really fantastic. It's hard to describe with words. We express it by the way we feel, but to implement the look face to face with each person so we can build this difference together to provide empowerment and respect to all women and men. And I hope that I was able to contemplate in my circle and with my peers yesterday. And I will end because I'm really, my voice is different because I'm really moved, really emotional with what happened yesterday. And since the time that I had the opportunity to get to know the restorative justice, and now I see that I described myself, but I didn't say who Eliane is. The person who is before you with a humble stance, someone who worked in the legal area for 12 years, but had never had the chance to work with restorative justice. I'm not a psychologist. I work with business administration and tourism, but I'm doing a master's degree in psychology so I can investigate the restorative justice not only as a tool but as a philosophy, and the strength that it has to bring to us what has to do with the co-living of humans. And I thank you so much for listening to me, and I hand back the floor to you.
Thank you so much. It sounds like your circle was very powerful. And it's interesting, while you were in circle yesterday, breathe, Eliane. You okay? While you were in circle yesterday, I was reading student papers on research methods class proposals. And one of the proposals that is being developed by a student here is the question, can we use circle process and restorative justice methods to help people who have been socialized white undo their whiteness, understand the power and privilege of whiteness in the US context specifically? And it seems to me that's the same thing that you were asking and wrestling with while I was grading that paper, which is, can we who are able and do not have disabilities use this to undo our ableism? And how important is that work to be embraced so that the restorative justice isn't only for the cases or the situations that involve people directly with disabilities, but for those of us who are really ableist? Can this help us see how we are that way and how we need to change? So thank you for a very powerful report and what sounds like an amazingly powerful experience. Thank you. And I think I'm handing over to Egberto.
Thank you so much, Jane, Jason, and Diani. Once again, I'm really moved by so many emotional speeches, one after the other. So working with schools is something very important for me because we end up being very close. We have a very close partnership between the restorative justice system in São Paulo and schools. So it's great to see you talking. And it's great to see you propitiating restorative justice processes, which might enable for the possible deconstruction of ableism, which might bring visibility to this huge diversity. It's an innumerous diversity. And it's important to have very just spaces. And there's no such thing as justice without inclusion of every single person. So it's something very powerful for me. And I think what you shared was very powerful in this interface between restorative justice and education. So to continue, I'm going to invite the next group, Mario Marcelo and Stephanie Lima. Mario, Stephanie, you decide who wants to go first. The floor is yours. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I'm 25 years old. I am a person with intellectual disabilities. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm like. I'm a woman. I'm a white woman. I have blonde hair and it's wavy. I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and behind me there's a painting, a beautiful painting that I love. I work with inclusion. Well, it was great to participate in the circle. I learned quite a bit in this group. I was very emotional hearing the stories that I did. I was very moved. We had a video that also moved me. When I saw the video, a lot of things came up in my head because I've already suffered a lot of prejudice in schools, being a person with a disability. And what I understood from it is that we should have this kind of mediation in schools together with families, with the school as a whole, and with the person with disabilities. Here in the state of São Paulo, we have the Municipal Council for Persons with Disability. And I participate in this council for 4 years now. And there, I used to do this kind of mediation with families, schools, and the education secretariat. And it was hard because families would come in and they were very angry because they didn't get enough support. They didn't have resources for people with disabilities. And there was a case that I was dealing with, and she said, look, I want you to be involved, otherwise I'll go to the justice system. So let's try and get to an agreement, because if you go to the justice system, it's going to take longer for you to solve all of this. So basically, I went and talked to the school, and then the school said, well, listen, we don't have the money to have specific resources for this person, for this resource. And we have 40 students per class. And so to have just one teacher just for a specific student that has intellectual disability, we don't have the money to do this. So I went to the education department, the education secretariat. I sent them an official document explaining the whole situation, what was going on, that this student really needed the support, that he had a disability, that he couldn't keep up with the classroom because of his disability. He didn't have a person to give him support. And then the secretariat gave me a response. Okay, we're going to try and get the resources. So I called the school. We were able to get it. And I called the family and explained everything that happened to see whether this resource would be applied or not. And it was. And now the student was able to keep up. So another story that was told in the group is that some time ago, he was an intellectually disabled person. He knew it, but he didn't have a diagnosis. He had no piece of paper proving that he had this disability. And so he came to school The school's principal told him, listen, you have a disability. He didn't get any support and any special resources, didn't have a person to do any mediation. And then he just took this. She had given him a piece of paper and he didn't know, what does this mean? I'm an intellectually disabled person. So nowadays, you can sort of, there's a few different disabilities that you can see, but there are other disabilities which aren't visible. There are many intellectually disabled people who, how do you know that? Like me, is it visible that I have an intellectual disability? And so I did this mediation between the secretariat, the school, the families. So, especially in cases of intellectually disabled people. And I think this should be in all schools. And I'm also having doing a course. I told my friends, man, I'm learning so much. I told Mario, I'm learning how to solve conflicts on the day-to-day life. And in the group that I participate with people with disabilities, we try to do this kind of mediation so that we don't go to the justice system and stuff like that. And that's the way I think. And now I'd like to open the floor to my friend Mario. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mario. Before I start speaking about what I do, I'd like to say that I have 3 children. I'm a Black man. I have a lot of tattoos. I really enjoy my tattoos. They carry my life story. I'm a historian. I work in the Municipal Education Secretariat. I'm bald. I am the coordinator of a governance project in schools working in circular processes and restorative justice with teenagers. I also have a training program with teachers in Campinas. I did not have the opportunity to have a mother and a father. I was part of public institutions. I also work with restorative justice in these institutions for orphans. I'd also like to thank everyone for this participation. It's a great opportunity. It's the second time that I've been working together with Ajufi. And, well, our circle was very powerful. It was coordinated by Paloma and Renata, if I remember. I'm sorry if I forgot the correct name. It was a meeting with a lot of very powerful people, a lot of potentiality, and things don't happen by chance, I believe. And really, this really showed up in our circle. And so there was a person that said, well, I don't know why I'm here, but I have 2 parents with Alzheimer's. And then they talked about the crises and the problems they had. And okay, now I understand why I'm here. And she talked a little bit about her experience and over 70,000 people that are in her group of caretakers of people with Alzheimer. And then she started understanding the issue of disability. Our circle was very, very powerful. And we defined our values, our guidelines. It was great. We had so many beautiful stories. I'd like to talk about Stephanie and her friend. It was great for me to meet them. I'd really like to keep in touch after this. And then in the end, when our moderators asked us what we thought of restorative justice and education, what can they do to deal with this theme of people with disabilities, many powerful speeches and contributions came after that. Christina, who is the mother of a person with disabilities, had a very powerful speech. So we had a privilege of having a protagonism of disabled people so that we were able to listen to this important speech. And what I understood after Stephanie talked, I realized we have many things to do. So it's important to have much more knowledge about this theme. Many people don't know a lot about this, generally speaking, and it's very important for restorative justice. And it was really a pleasure to be in this circle and to have this opportunity. And then we had some colleagues who brought a very important contribution that made us understand how much we needed to learn. Second, I think that we should educate society as a whole, not just on specific dates. We know that we have Green September and we have the month of people with disability, but it's like a trap. We should only talk about this on a specific date, on a specific month, and especially when we're talking about people with disabilities, this should be dealt with all the time, especially in education, because that's the main space where we can build public policies to expand our knowledge and our struggle against the violence against disabled people. But we must discuss this theme, among others, in a permanent fashion. When I started to study this theme a few years ago, and I started becoming a facilitator for restorative justice, all of the meetings that I came to, I had two questions. Why should we have restorative justice, and for whom? Because I often saw there was an extremely white space, whiteness of privilege, and it didn't really dialogue with structural problems. And so restorative justice needs to dialogue with systemic problems like systemic racism, homophobia, violence against children, and violence against people with disability. Then all of restorative justice, if it doesn't communicate with this, it ends up losing its meaning. It makes it so that this theme, a circle like this, makes it so that this theme can be brought by the protagonists, the people with disabilities themselves. And what do we highlight? What can education and restorative justice together do? In Brazil, we have a lot of experience. We have a lot of education in relation to people with disability. I am a facilitator in schools to talk about this, and the circles that we make here are also done and coordinated together with young people who are disabled. And so we share so much wealth and knowledge and information. So we have permanent circles. We do circles from Monday to Friday, and then we go to another school and we talked about structural problems permanently in the school system. And when we understand that we can create spaces to include these young people, we start to realize how much we see change in their day-to-day lives and how huge their contribution can be in this process of equality. It's like we say in my organization, let's go from the power over for power with. Let's create institutional equality with no judgment so that we can listen. And based on that, we can flow with our feelings and we can understand the needs that people are bringing, especially in the case of people with disabilities. We're taught to be violent. I think the contributions here should really show this. That means that we must practice restorative justice, not only in this theme of persons with disability, but overall, we should have a society that's more accessible in a language that's less technical. We don't need to agree all the time. We're not saying that people need to speak in slang, but if you know how to speak slang, well, it's a dialect for young marginalized people. So sometimes you won't break exclusion if you're not able to speak in urban slang dialects. You're not going to be listening to the protagonists of marginalization. So it's important to foster others people, to harbor them, to listen empathically and understanding what empathy is.
Batizada, que é se colocar no lugar do outro, não, se colocar no lugar do outro, sendo o outro.
It's not just you putting yourself in another person's place. It's you got to listen to other people. You got to intentionally, empathically listen to them. So it's great to listen to people with disabilities. It's important to listen to young Black women and men when we're talking about racism. To listen to our teenagers when we're talking about domestic violence, for instance. I think that what restorative justice can do is expand or create spaces that are intentionally there to harbor people, to foster people, respecting the territory, respecting the local dynamics, and respecting the history of each child or adolescent in a Freirean way based on Paulo Freire. And that's a little bit of what we did yesterday. We had Christina, who was a teacher from the education system and a mother of a person with disability, and she talked about the hard time she has raising and educating her child. When we listened to Stephanie talk about the prejudice that she suffered, but also all that she learned based on the moment that she was actually supported, listened to, starting from the moment when she started being treated without discrimination. Honey also talked about his process of building his life. He also reaches the classroom and he's treated with so much prejudice. There's a teacher who bullied him. He has an intellectual disability, and she did this very violently. And how he reacted to this, trying to preserve his family, trying to preserve his mother, which was very important to him. So he wasn't going to tell his mother about the violence he suffered because he didn't want her to suffer from the violence that he had suffered, because she already had to bring meals home. She was the one working. But later he was listened to, he was understood as the protagonist of his story as a person with disability. And this was very important. Finally, using a word that everyone talked about is ableism. Sometimes we do this kind of thing, not because we're bad people. In restorative justice, we shouldn't work with good or evil. Sometimes we end up practicing ableism with good intentions because sometimes we don't know about this theme, this term, and we must break this taboo. And when we're going to talk about people with disabilities, we need to talk to them, with them. And like so many of my companions who came before, they have full rights and they're able to love, they're able to build their own histories, they're able to build all that they have the right to do because they are people with human rights, just like everyone. So the group summarized all this in a very impactful manner. And finally, I have two sentences to leave with you. Be the change that you want to see in the world. And another phrase from a beautiful pacifist thinker, Madiba Nelson Mandela. We should not judge people due to their skin color, their origin, their culture, their religion. However, if people are taught to hate, they can be taught to love. And this teaches us that we must be taught to love and must teach people to love everyone, and especially people with disabilities. Love them as normal people who have rights like everyone else. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Egberto, for listening to us. Thank you, Jane. But especially thank you to the group that I participated in, Cristina, Stephanie, Rony, and these are all friends of mine from now on. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Stephanie. That was very wonderful. The Campinas experience is very interesting. It's great to talk about this kind of systematic approach, co-responsibilities, not just individual responsibilities, but co-responsibilities between family, society, the state. This is how we can see restorative justice actually working about accessibility and about in the prevention of violence. So it's a whole network that is created. So it's very important to listen to what you shared. Well, due to how late we are right now, I think that we should just pass the word on to Jane.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to lift up a couple of things. Mario, I really appreciated you saying we need to expand our languages, by which we don't just mean Portuguese, English, Spanish, etc., right? The languages that are being spoken by the people we live around that are sub-languages or dialects. We have to be willing to expand that. I live in very close to Appalachia, so right on the edge. And there is a whole dialect spoken by people who live near me that is disrespected greatly in this country. And so that is a really good reminder. And I would also say then the educational system as central, and don't just give us a day or a week. Ableism should be challenged every day of every year, and we should be acknowledging everybody's presence all the time and their worth and their dignity. Thank you so much. And now we turn to the English speaking circle. And Tomas and Kaya are going, did I say your name right, Kaya?
Hi, it's Kaya.
Kaya, sorry.
Kaya, that's okay. Thank you.
Yes. Welcome to our last circle group.
Hello. Can I get spotlight? Thank you. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Thomas Porges. To describe myself, I'm a white man with short blonde hair, a blue shirt with a polka dot tie, and in my background you can see a wood table with artwork done by deaf artists, and one of this artwork shows a person becoming free and releasing their handcuffs. So, and I have some family pictures behind me, my 3 children as well. Okay.
Yes, good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Kaya Allison. I am from Chicago, and I'm excited to be here. I am an African-American woman, and I have on a black and gold and silver wrap scarf behind me. I have their wooden blinds. I'm excited to be here. So I look forward to sharing our conversations and what some of our takeaways were from our powerful talking circle.
So our circle first started with a very humble reminder that we need to take a breath. So I'd like everyone with us today to just take a moment and breathe. Because we quite often just dive in so quickly and lots of information is thrown at us and we forget to really take care of ourselves and center and frame the ongoing conversation of our circle. Our overall format included 4 components. We opened with introductions on what we arrived with, discussed what values we brought to restorative justice work and how that can be applied based on the presentations we heard over the last 2 days. Then we took an opportunity to learn about each other. We did off-the-record turn-taking in a way we could be authentic and express our emotions. And then we closed with what we were leaving with. So I'll begin by walking us through each of those pieces. Our participants shared that many of them were arriving with a great deal of anxiety, nervousness, and concern, and even some stress, and acknowledged that the discussions were very inspirational. Okay?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. Also, some of our people in the talking circles, they shared that they came with a deep sense of humility. They also shared that they had a respect and understanding that each individual has their own value, right? The importance of that. One that also stuck out to me is that someone mentioned they wanted to talk the talk and walk the walk as it pertains to implementing restorative justice practices with people with disabilities. Overall, the participants, they equally arrived in the space with an open mind and the willingness to learn from one another.
And we have to really take our hats off to the facilitators who were able to really take our group and create solidarity, which then led us into our second topic of conversation, which was the values we're bringing towards our restorative justice work and how we could apply those based on the lectures and presentations we'd heard over the last 2 days. Some of the things that were mentioned included flexibility, the value and importance of self-care, inclusivity, dignity, which came up from one of the presentations yesterday, trust, good intentions, and listening are all things we bring to the table. Anything you'd like to add, Kaya?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I would like to add openness. I think people came with literally a blank slate. Some arrived not knowing what to expect. This topic was something that was brand new to some people coming into the talking circle. So they came in with an open heart, not really having any expectations, but being present. And like you said, Thomas, and being an open and deeply listening, just willingness to learn from one another. Yeah.
So then our third component of our talking circle was that off the record turn taking. We didn't record it intentionally, but there was the ability to share very raw, authentic, powerful stories, both on a personal and professional level, especially for those people working with individuals with disabilities. And that COVID continues to perpetuate harm and has made repair much more difficult. This raises the question that was mentioned earlier, whether that 40% of people who have disabilities, maybe they wouldn't otherwise be disabled by COVID, or maybe their disability became more profound, and our systems perpetuate those inequalities amongst those with disabilities, and COVID has heightened the impact of those. And finally, having a restorative justice lens, and I've said this to some of you already, we're all believers and practitioners of restorative justice. So we might be a little biased knowing that restorative justice is working and productive. But honestly, if restorative justice could be more important now than ever before, due to COVID and so much information coming at us about our mental health, our ability to survive, and considering Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those basic needs really have been broken out, and restorative justice values can help guide us on a path to recovery and repair. And really take a hard look at the status quo. Who does that benefit? And who did COVID really exclude from the status quo. So restorative justice can and should be a compass and help us move towards better understanding of the status quo and the complexity of power and privilege. Kaya, anything to add on that part, the off-the-record turn taking?
Yes, I would also like to add that it was shared, the isolation during the pandemic time, which we still are in, that people with disabilities were and are still isolated. You have some community organizations that may have not fully opened yet. So therefore they are isolated from their own community, from the resources that are necessary for them to thrive. They're isolated from family members. So those things were shared, and we need to figure out how we can assist them during this time. Even though we're in a pandemic, we still need to make a way as we are going on with our lives. They too need some type of resource so they can continue that normalcy, right? Because some of them are, they operate better with routine, and the routine in life has been turned upside down for all of us. So yes, I wanted to add that.
So then our fourth theme that the facilitators asked each of us to share what we were taking away from this experience. And many of our participants mentioned an appreciation of their understanding of restorative justice as a base, that we are one and the same. And even though we're diverse, and together we have to provide one another with support, show each other, and appreciate each other through listening. Kaya?
Also, some of our members shared that they felt a sense of growth as they left the circle. They felt that all the information that was shared would assist them in becoming a better restorative justice practitioner. And they also shared that we're strengthened. We're strengthened by our diversity. I mean, because we all are from all different walks of life, but we also shared a sense of reality, a sense of comfort in knowing that what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, that we're not alone. Some left feeling optimistic. One person shared that it was a type of oxygen that they felt throughout the sharing and the talking circles. Eyes were opened. Eyes were open to so many different ideas and ways of approaching things, a new way of thinking that, we never thought of. People were more attentive, leaving more attentive to the needs of their neighbors with disabilities. One person shared that they felt good in knowing that they were doing their part, right? They're doing their part in helping their brother and sister. Because one of them shared that they work in an environment with people with disabilities, and they found that they were able to learn so much from them just by taking the time to sit down and really talk with them. They found that they saw themselves in them. And so because of that attentive listening, they're able to grow themselves. So people left with a real sense of unity, building community together, and just a readiness to start the work.
Absolutely. And just a final thought for me, and then Kaya, you can have your final thoughts, but I want to mention a quote that I learned recently I want to share with all of you that I'll put in chat. And if somebody could provide an English to Portuguese translation of that text. But it's from Tomás Poia. He's an author not related to restorative justice, but he has said the world has never learned as fast about anything ever. And we need it because we know so little about the COVID virus. All of this will achieve something critical, which is buy us time. I'm very thrilled over the last 3 days of this seminar to talk about the restorative justice approach and slowly take a look at how restorative justice can and should be used to help buy us time to rebuild and restore our communities throughout this violent time. Okay,
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I wanted to end with something that I felt from my heart as we left the talking circle. I know that we are living through a pandemic, but I really feel that it's time for a shift that needs to occur where spaces such as this and beyond are created for people with disabilities to have a platform. I feel that it's important for them to have a platform as leaders, as facilitators, mentors, and spokespersons. I think it's important because when their peers witness this, they will also feel a sense of empowerment. It helps when you see someone that is just like you and they're given a voice. So then you feel, well, as you say, everyone has a voice, but their voice is heard, right? And that space, their voice is valued. I think that it is time for the door of inclusion to be open with a restorative approach. And I feel that that's the first step that can lead to a positive change. Overall, the circles, these talking circles were much needed. And like I said before, it was a first time for some, but it was an opportunity to dig deep on a deeper level to discuss how we're managing things during this pandemic time. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. This was a subject matter that has been put on the back burner, and I feel that we all genuinely shared from our heart. And my prayer is that this flame of hope and light will continue to burn, that we will move forward and be the change that we want to see in the world. Thank you for your time. And even though there's a language barrier between some of us listening, I felt the heart, I felt the compassion, I felt the love. And that's a beautiful thing, that we're all on the same page to make change and to remember that we are one. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, really powerful insights. What if we faced every threat restoratively? Multiple threats have been named. COVID one, but racism, political unrest. We haven't even mentioned climate change and related natural disasters. I think one of the things I'm taking away from this few days is that question: what if we faced every threat restoratively? And then inside of every threat, we found the opportunity. And so one of the things I've been hearing here is COVID affected communities and persons with disabilities more than anybody else, right? And it's one I didn't notice. Shame on me, right? I saw the class differences. I saw the differences in my very globally diverse small town where we have 62 languages spoken in our public schools. I saw the lack of broadband access for people in the rural areas and people whose families don't have resources. I did not even think about or see persons with disabilities. So I think, thank you for opening my eyes and also for giving me hope and an idea that if we approach all of these challenges restoratively, inside every one is the opportunity to rebuild society the way we want it to be. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this. Alberto?
Obrigado, Jane. Obrigado, Keaya e Thomas. Esse sentimento de crescimento.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Thomas. Keaya. We have the feeling that we are wrapping up our event. We think we are about to go from one scenario to another, listening to all these messages that were shared here. And what we want is actions, effective actions. Effectiveness in the actions. From the managing group of the Justice Court of São Paulo, and also the partnership with of Katia Roncada. We have visited different issues.
Mais visibilidade, com grande humildade, né? Que é outro tema.
We have looked closely to this topic, and we learned with Thomas this place of respect, where we can take care of these topics. So I just want to thank you all once again for this opportunity, and I leave this meeting with a deep feeling of gratitude. I'd like to thank you all who made this event happen, who believed in the strength of this gathering of efforts. I can only thank you. I've been really moved by the things you shared, and I feel grateful for being with us in such an important moment. I would like to thank especially Professor João Salm, who created this whole connection so that this event could effectively happen. Professor João, I hand the floor to you, providing my acknowledgement and my thanks to you all. Thank you, Dr. Katia. Now we're going to we're going to go to the ending of our seminar. And I would like to thank you for your wonderful work, the work of engagement of the tutors Alberto, Inedo, Professor Doctory. I'd like to thank the testimonials and participation of Mari, Eva, Larissa, Matilde, Maíra, Vanessa, Geisa, Eliane, Mário, and Stefan. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Kay and Thomas, for bringing to us the discussions that you had in the group, in your group. I'd like to have a special mention to the group of facilitators who was ready and willing to facilitate the circles in English, especially Ebony Rocker, Karen, Irmandona, Angelique, Ellen. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. They were dedicated all this time to participate in our event. I would like to thank them, all of them. I have deep respect and admiration to the work that they develop as facilitators. So thank you so much on behalf of the organizing group of this event. Our gratitude to you. Also would like to thank Felipe and Sabrina from AJUF, Saulo of João Clement Institute, to be engaged since the beginning of this project that originated this seminar, and everyone who got together with us in the materialization of this event. Again, we would like to thank everyone who were with us in these 3 days, 3 days of a lot of learning, reflections. I always tell my students here in Chicago that if we could translate restorative justice in one word, this word would be relationships. Relationship with ourselves, with the other people, with the nature, and with the cosmos, with the universe. And I want to believe that this event provided this to us, for us to strengthen our relationships above all. So, I'd like to thank you very much. A great rest of the week for you all. Have good festivities, and I see you next time. Bye-bye. Big hug to you.